I told you I'd come on.
Welcome back to True Stories from a Real Private Eye. I'm your host, Vinnie Coppola. With me is Lynn Lambdin, a real private investigator from Atlanta, Georgia, and he's had a 30-year career of some crazy stories. And we are so glad that you're here. And he's got another one for us today. Lynn, what do you got for us today?
Well, Vinnie, how are you doing today? Did you have a good week?
I had a great week. So good to see you again.
Good to see you. Well, Vinnie, this week, this is not a funny story. This is kind of a sad story. This is a story happened back in the 90s. A young boy by the name of Terrell Peterson.
How old?
He was 5 years old, I think, at the time of his death.
Oh man.
Yeah, his horrible story. He died in this, and his mother and grandmother, they were 5 kids in the house, and this was the only one they abused. They tortured him, they beat him, they starved him, and he weighed less than 30 pounds. It was somewhere between 25 and 30 pounds when he died. And when I got him,
you've been doing this for like I said at the beginning, you've been doing this 30 years. So I mean, you run into this thing every now and then. I mean, you have these crazy cases, you have these outrageous cases. Some are funny, and some are just heartbreaking, like this one, right?
Some are heartbreaking. Some are very heartbreaking. Some
it goes with the job, right? Yeah,
it goes with the job. I worked 2 murder cases in my career, and 3 murder cases in my career. 2 as a criminal, on the criminal side, where that I worked for the defendant as a court-appointed investigator. Early in my career, I said, well, I'm not real busy, so I'm going to get on the list in all the counties around here and be a court-appointed investigator and work for the courts. Just like you can get a court-appointed attorney, you can get a court-appointed investigator. So I was a court-appointed investigator getting appointed on these cases, and I got appointed on the attorney at the time that got me on this case was Derek Jones.
And is the money when I assume that when you're working as a court-appointed investigator, the money is not as good as if you're hired by a firm. Is that correct? By a lawyer?
No, it's not nearly as good. But the work is a little more. Once you build your reputation, the work would be a little bit more steady, and it takes you longer to get paid. But once that you get the work and the jobs in, you will always have that check coming in. But unfortunate for me, I didn't do it very long because of the nature of the beast. After this job, I quit because my conscience bothered me so bad.
Yeah.
Working for the criminal just wasn't my cup of tea. And it had a heart, and I just couldn't do it. Just couldn't stand helping a criminal. Well, I can't remember which one. One of them was going to plead out and testify against the other one, and they were talking about bringing.
You're talking about the mother and the grandmother now?
I'm talking about the mother and the grandmother.
Yeah. So one of them was going to testify against the other, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and I can't remember which way it was going to go. This was before the trial, and this was when they just first brought charges, and they were talking about bringing a death penalty. Well, I wasn't qualified to work a death penalty case, but I was qualified to work as a court-appointed investigator and try to bring evidence to stop them from bringing the death penalty. And that was my job was to find evidence to stop the death penalty from being brought against the other. So one was going to plead guilty for life in prison and testify against the other. I think it was the daughter was going to testify against the grandmother because they said the grandmother was the perpetrator, and for the grandmother to get the death penalty. So
the story that she was giving was the grandmother was the one that tortured the little boy. The grandmother was the one that starved the boy. That was her story.
And beat the little boy.
And so
yes.
And beat the little boy. So the court appointed you to find evidence to back that up?
Well, Derek Jones got me appointed on the case as one of her. She had like 3 or 4 different criminal offense attorneys, and Derek Jones got me appointed to find evidence so they could present it to the courts for a bargaining chip, so that they would take the death penalty off the table. So
what kind of evidence would you be looking for to get?
That's what we'll go into in the story. But
right. I'm getting ahead of ourselves.
We're getting ahead of ourselves. But we were looking for evidence of wrongdoing by the police, wrongdoing by DFACS, wrongdoing by doctors, things like that.
I see. Okay.
So we were looking to place the blame elsewhere.
Right.
So if DFACS would have done their job, if the police would have done their job, if the hospital would have done their job, then the little boy would still be alive.
Gotcha.
This would have not made it to this point. That's the evidence that I was looking for. So So this little boy was beaten. He was starved. And the working theory at the time amongst the attorneys and the investigators was that the grandmother hated Terrell's father. So they were going to, so they tortured this little boy because they hated his father. And DFACS would come out and they would call and say, we're going to be out Tuesday for a visit at 3:00.
Explain what DFACS is real quick.
DFACS is Human and Health Services. DFACS is like if you've beaten your child, they'll come out and they'll protect the children. It's I can't remember what it stands for off the top of my head, but they protect children and elderly adults and things.
So DFACS knew that there was some kind of abuse going on in this house.
Yes.
Okay. And what was the police called out before or something? Was
yes, they were alerted to it. The police was alerted to it. DFACS was alerted to it. The kid had been taken to the hospital many times. They were under the watchful eye of DFACS.
Okay, got it.
So DFACS would call them up and say, we're coming out for a visit on Tuesday. And so on Tuesday, they would take the kid to the next door neighbor's house, and they would get the next door neighbor's 5-year-old kid and bring him over and call him Terrell.
Oh, boy.
DFACS knew that this was happening.
Oh, okay.
They didn't do anything about it. Terrell would be in such horrible condition, they would take him down to Grady Hospital. Grady would do nothing about it. They wouldn't pull him. The doctors had the power to pull him out of the home and not allow him to go back, and they didn't do it. The police.
What's the theory on that? What's the theory on why they didn't do it? Just didn't want to get involved?
You're getting ahead of yourself again.
Okay. All right.
And they locked him in a closet, and they made him sit in a closet all the time, in a dark closet. Just horrible. This kid was pictures of this kid that we seen behind the scenes that the courts got to see was just Vinnie. I cried. I'm a grown man crying looking at this little kid's pictures. I mean, you wouldn't treat an animal like this,
Right.
I mean, animals going to slaughter. There's laws protecting them better than these kids.
Wow.
Just horrible, Vinnie. Horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, this kid was tortured. I mean, he was beaten and he was starved, and they wouldn't give him any water or anything to drink. And when he died at 5 years old, almost 6 years old, he weighed like 25, 26, something, 28 pounds.
Right.
Skin and bones, just the most sickening thing you'd ever seen.
Wow.
But the other 4 kids were perfect. Nothing wrong with them. Nothing at all wrong with them. So
how old were the other kid?
I think most of them were older. They may have been one younger.
Yeah.
But none of them were abused or anything. I mean, they wasn't treated like kings or queens or anything, but they were all healthy. They wasn't beat on or tortured or put in a closet or starved or anything. They were treated fine.
Now, is this the real mother, or is this like an adopted mother, or is was this the real mother doing all this, or the real grandmother?
I was under the assumption at the time that this was the real mother and the real grandmother. It could have been different. I didn't get that involved. behind the scenes up until the time once that we got what we wanted. I pulled out at that point because once that we got what we wanted, it was pretty much just plea deals from that point forth. So, we issued subpoenas for 4 or 5 DFACS workers, 2 police officers from the city of Atlanta, and I think it was 3 doctors from Grady Hospital. Well, the first thing I did is I said, well, DFACS should be easy to serve. I'll catch them there one morning pretty early, and we'll just get them served and move on. So I show up at DFACS, and lo and behold, they start hiding from me and running from me and cursing and, acting stupid. So it takes me about a month, and I get them served, and I corner them in their office and serve them, and they're telling me what a dirty piece of crap I am and going on. And even their supervisor is telling me that I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing, that I'm wrong.
It's very depressing that this agency that's supposed to protect kids is calling you names and being nasty to you when you're just doing your job trying to protect a kid.
Well, I wasn't even trying to protect the kid. I was just serving the subpoenas after they had not protected the kid. And
right. But they're supposed to be protecting the kid. You would think, oh yeah, we'll go to court. Yeah, we'll tell you what you want to know. Yeah, of course, we got to look after these kids. But no, I mean, is DFACS a government-run agency?
It is.
Well, there you go.
They take your tax dollars to pay DFACS,
to pay these deadbeats that they're just punching a time clock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we find out that DFACS had been out to their house many times, and they knew that Terrell had been after the first few times that they had caught on that Terrell had been abused. They took Terrell to the next door neighbors, and they knew that the little kid that they were calling Terrell wasn't Terrell. They knew that was the neighbor kid, and they didn't do anything about it. They just wrote it up. Because
how did they know? Do you think?
Because the DFACS worker that was there was the DFACS worker that knew what Terrell looked like, and they knew that he wasn't healthy.
Oh, okay.
And this was a healthy 5-year-old or 6-year-old that didn't match Terrell's pictures that was in the file.
So they just came over, looked it up and down, and said, "Up, everything's fine here," and left.
Exactly.
Ugh.
Exactly. And then they just horrible. I don't understand how you could lay down at night going, you know what? I know that child's being abused, but I'm going to go home and lay down and go to sleep. I wasn't abused.
Right. Yeah.
Screw that 5-year-old kid. Just let him get abused.
Yeah. Horrible.
How do you do that, Vinnie?
I have no idea. Yeah.
How do you live with yourself knowing that that's going on? I couldn't do that.
Yeah, I couldn't either.
So next I go to the Grady Hospital where that they had taken Terrell numerous times, 8 or 10 times. And I start trying to serve the doctors. Well, I serve one pretty easy. And he's telling me that I'm just a deadbeat and I'm destroying everybody's lives. And so the other 2 starts running from me and I can't serve them. And
through the hospital? Are they running through the hospital or just?
They're through the hospital. They're hiding. I go to their house and I can't get them at their house. Their lights are always turned off. Their doors are locked. So they switch to the night shift and start working the midnight shift.
Yeah.
And so I started tracking their patterns at the hospital and figuring out what they were doing. So when I would show up, they would run to the basement.
Yeah.
So I would show up and then I would get on the elevator and go straight to the basement. So, so eventually I caught one of them and I served him. And when I was walking out, he walked beside me and he goes, "Take this back." He said, "You know what you're doing?" He said, "You're going to get yourself killed and you're going to get me killed." He said, "Take this back." He said, "Please do not let anybody know you served me." He said, "You're going to get us killed." He said, "Please." And he was an Oriental doctor.
Yeah.
And I didn't say anything to him because it really hadn't set in that they didn't do their job.
Right.
And, so I said, "No." I said, "You know, you've been served, and I'm going to turn in the affidavit saying that you've been served." And they brought tons of files, and
Tons of files about what?
About Terrell Peterson, where he had been brought to the hospital, where he'd been abused and he was malnourished.
The doctors brought tons of files to the hearing.
They turned them over. We subpoenaed their files.
Oh, right. Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay, you subpoenaed the files, right? Gotcha.
Yeah, and they brought tons of these files in, and where that Terrell had been brought to the Grady Hospital numerous times, been brought there on the order of the police, been brought there on the order of DFACS. That he had just been brought there because they didn't think he was going to live, and they brought him there, and nothing had been done. They would treat him and release him.
Unbelievable.
And the file said suspected family violence, malnutrition, family not feeding him. This was all in the files, and the doctors never reported it.
Yeah, so I was just thinking that. I was like, at least say something to the cops, at least, right? At least say something to the cops.
Yep. Well, they did report it to a couple police officers, and but the police never reacted on it. So next I go to the city of Atlanta, and I am going to serve the police officers. Well, there's two of them, and I served one. It took me a while, but I finally got him served, and he's a real jerk. He's telling me that I've destroyed his life, and that I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just a young punk, and I should get out of the business and mind my own business and all this other stuff.
Right.
So the other cop was the main one we wanted. So he left the day shift and went to the midnight shift. So I chased him all over Atlanta. I went to his house. I went everywhere, chased this man for months. And at one night at midnight, this was when the city of Atlanta was at the old Sears building. Are you familiar with the old Sears building downtown Atlanta?
Familiar with it? No.
Well, when you go to the police department down there, you had to go in the parking garage and go around the back of the building, and you're just in the parking garage there. In the daytime, you're fine. There's cars everywhere. But at midnight, it's just you and the police, nobody else.
Right.
And there's a Gold's Gym there. There was. It's not anymore. But there was a Gold's Gym there where only police officers could work out. So at midnight, the Gold's Gym was closed. And so I go down there, and I'm in my red Firebird that I followed the dancer in.
Yeah.
And I park, and I go at midnight because that's when they're switching shifts. Well, I catch him coming out of roll call on the 5th floor, and I serve him. And when I served him, I turned and walked away. And when I did, he started following me. And he goes, "I'm going to kill you." And he goes, "I'm going to bury your body." And you got to remember, it's pitch dark, and these lights in this parking garage is out.
No cars around.
Yeah. Nothing.
Yeah.
So he gets on the elevator with me, and he says, "You're a dead man." And he's got his hand on his gun. And he said, "You are dead." He said, "You've destroyed my life." He said, "I'm going to lose my job." He said, "So I'm going to go ahead and kill you."
Well, you should have done something about this kid, motherfucker.
I was...
It's your fault, stupid.
I was so... Vinnie?
Yeah.
I was so convinced that he was going to kill me.
Yeah.
He was on my shoulder,
Yeah.
and I mean, and I don't mean on my shoulder. I could feel his breath on my neck.
Yeah.
When we came out of that elevator and turned toward the door.
Now, Lynn, real quick. Now, were you saying anything back, or you were just going, you just walking away?
No. My mind was racing. I wasn't saying a word. My mind was racing on, and the only thing I kept thinking was, how am I going to get away from him?
And how old are you at this time?
27, 28, 20 somewhere.
Wow. Okay.
I wasn't.
So
I
he's
wasn't 30.
He's whispering, I'm gonna kill you. You ruined my life. I'm gonna bury your body. No one's ever gonna find you. And you're just
Oh yeah, he told me he told me he's going to bury me in the swamps.
Yeah.
And he says, when I get you out of here, when I get you out of this building, he said, you're a dead man. He said, you're dead.
Yeah.
And Vinnie, I could just, I know he didn't have his gun out, but I could feel the pressure on my back.
Yeah.
And my mind was racing. It's like, okay, when I get out of that door, what am I going to do?
Right.
And my wife was in the car. She rode down with me.
Yeah.
Now, this was, at the time, she wasn't my wife. She was just my girlfriend.
Right.
And I'm thinking, she's going to watch me get killed.
Oh, God.
And then if she says anything, he'll probably kill her.
Yeah.
And my mind is racing 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, this police officer just followed me out of his roll call, down an elevator. There's nobody around.
Right.
It's dark.
Yeah. This is it.
I'm not getting in. I'm not going with him. And we're going to fist fight.
Yeah.
Because I'm not getting in that car willingly. So he's going to kill me.
Yeah.
So when we walked out the door, I thought, well, I'll just turn and run.
Yeah.
But when we walked out the door, my wife Chrissy blew the horn on that Firebird, and that Firebird had one of those old style horns, and it was loud.
Yeah, foghorn.
And when she blew the horn, it startled him.
Yeah.
And he turned and went the other way.
Whew.
And
wow.
I had never been as relieved in my life.
Yeah.
And boy, I got the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah, heck yeah.
I knew. And when I got in the car, I started that car and I got out of there, and I told her, I said, you just saved my life.
Yeah.
I said, that police officer was going to kill me. She said, well, I knew something was going on. She goes, because he was right on your back.
Yeah.
She said, when you come through that door, she said, the look on your face, she said, I knew something was going on.
Yeah.
So when she blew that horn, he went the other way. But I knew I was a dead man. I mean, if she wouldn't have been there, I'd be talking to you today.
Now I know Chrissy. I met her several times.
Oh, you know Chrissy.
I know Chrissy. I met her several times. Great gal. I'm just wondering, does she ever hold it over your head?
No, never said a word about it.
Hey man, I saved your life. Go do the dishes.
never said a word about it. Never said a word ever.
Wow. So I'm probably getting ahead of myself with this question. Did anything happen to this officer as far as jail time, losing his badge?
Several
not because of threatening you,
no,
but because of the neglect.
Several police officers lost their job, including him.
Yeah.
Several defects workers lost their job, and several doctors at Grady lost their job, and they ended up writing several laws called the Terrell Peterson law.
Yeah.
But it didn't change anything, Vinnie.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Defects is still horrible. I've had a lot of experience with defects, and there's nothing. I mean, I've worked a lot of defects cases, and I've been in a lot of houses where people are fostering defects children, and nothing. I went to this to interview this one lady one morning, and she's cooking breakfast, and I mean, she's got this nice breakfast going, ham and eggs and gravy, and she's got like 4 defects children there, and she serves her and her boyfriend all this big breakfast. and gives the kids ramen noodles.
Oh man.
Yeah, I know, sickening. It's sickening. I mean,
And
and
you know why, and you know what, I'm going to go out on a line, on a limb here, and say something that I know nothing about, but only through experience, through things I've heard, and now hearing this story, I wouldn't be surprised if 90% of these parents that foster these kids do it just for the government check.
that's the only reason they do it is for the government check.
So I'm not off there, am I?
No, you hit
Yeah.
you hit a
So
home.
they're just collecting a paycheck and no interest in the kids. Yeah.
And they will do everything in the world to keep that kid from getting adopted, because once that kid gets adopted, they lose their government check.
Yeah.
And then they have to wait until another kid is placed in their home.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is the most disgusting. The money is in fostering, not in adopting. If they
Right.
took the money out of fostering, kids would get adopted, and there wouldn't be so many kids in foster homes.
Yeah.
And there wouldn't be so many kids being abused and adopted in foster homes.
Yeah.
So that has to change before,
Yeah, that's something that definitely I didn't know it was that bad.
Oh,
wow.
And even though they wrote the Terrell Peterson laws, and
what was the Terrell Peterson law?
I don't remember exactly what they were, but
they can Google it, right?
you can Google it, and the whole story's on the internet.
Google the Atlanta, Georgia Terrell Peterson law, and you could probably hear the whole story. Whatever became of the grandmother and the mother?
They both got life in prison. I think they got life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Excellent. Well, good. Some justice for this kid.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you can call it justice, I mean, how do you? I mean,
there's nothing makes up for what this kid went through.
I hate to say that anybody should get the death penalty, but because it really takes the.
I have no problem with saying it. Matter of fact, I think there should be more crime. I think more crime should carry a capital punishment sentence.
Well, I agree with you, but here's the problem with the death penalty is that they get off easy because they don't have to live with that torture all their life. They could have given these two the death penalty and they could have got off easy.
That's true.
But now they have to live 60, 70 years in prison with just hopefully the people in prison is just torturing them.
Yeah, well, you know what? I've heard this. I know you've probably heard it that when some of these child abusers, these child molesters, child rapists, women rapists, when they get to prison, you're dealing with a bunch of guys in there. They might be murderers, they might be thieves, they might be these gang members, but they all have girlfriends, they all have wives, they all have kids.
Yep.
So a child molester comes into a prison, or a child molester, or a child rapist, or a child killer, or a woman beater, or a woman killer, and that guy, he has a hard time. He has a hard time in prison, and rightly so.
Hopefully, these two have a very hard time in prison.
Hopefully, they're already dead.
Well, they, I just the torture that. I mean, you hate to say something like this, but the kid couldn't get any relief from the authorities. But maybe the death was a minute of peace for the kid.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, can you imagine the torture that poor child went through?
All he knew. He's 5 years old. That's all he knows. That's all he knows. He doesn't know any. He just thinks, well, this is the way it is. This is my life. That's it. I mean,
wow. That is just so horrible. I mean,
there's a special place in hell waiting for these people. There's a special place in hell waiting for the people who abuse this kid.
I hope so. I hope that they don't ever. I hope that they don't ever stop being tortured. I hope that they're tortured forever. I mean, that is just a 5-year-old kid, man. I don't have words for it, Vinny.
Yeah, I don't either. That's awful. And I have a 5-year-old, so it's hard. Hard to hear.
They're so innocent.
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's no justification for treating a 5-year-old that way.
Yeah.
There's
Treating anybody that way, let alone a child.
exactly.
Let alone a child. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
There's none at all.
That's rough. That's rough, Lynn. That's
Vinnie,
I mean, I know you've seen some crazier stuff and some I know this, and I'm enjoying listening to these stories. But yeah, that's a hard one. You got to promise us a funny one next week, Lynn.
I'll tell you what, Vinnie, next week, what we'll do is we'll put together some quick, funny ones. I've got several that's real funny but they're short. So we'll do 3 or 4 real quick, short ones that are very, very funny.
Oh, okay, great. All right, good.
They're divorces that I worked that are very quick. We'll make them quick but short, but we'll hit the funny parts.
Okay, cool.
But I want to tell you, after that, I told you I worked two murder cases where that I was the investigator for the defendant, and that's all I could work. I couldn't do it anymore. I quit. I gave it up. I had a conscience, and I just said, man, I cannot help these people get off. I don't understand how anybody can represent these people with a conscience, man. I just don't get it.
Because you're a good guy, you know. Yeah. You know, I mean, and it's good, man. You know, I mean, some people get blinded by money, you know, and they're like, hey, I don't care as long as it's a paycheck. I can't think like that.
I can't either, Vinnie, man. I'm telling you, after working that case with that child, the other one was a kind of a hate crime, and it was 2 adults.
Yeah.
And it didn't bother me so bad.
Right.
But this one, man, tore me up. I'm telling you. I didn't really mind the police officer threatening me so bad.
Yeah.
You know,
but seeing those pictures and hearing what those people did to that kid, yeah,
and being so involved in what happened with that kid, and seeing behind the scenes that the public don't see, and seeing what defects, how they just overlook this, and seeing these people with no conscience just going, we know it's not Terrell, but we're just going to go home and go to bed, let him die. I mean, how do you do that? How do you don't take the job if that's your attitude?
Yeah.
And how can a doctor take a Hippocratic oath and go, yeah, we know he's being abused, but take him back home?
I'm not going to make a phone call. Come on.
Exactly.
Come on. I mean, Jesus. I mean, you know, it's people like that, you know, they don't belong in society, because they're clock watchers.
Yeah.
Collecting a paycheck and going home, and you know, I mean, that's why a lot of institutions in this country suck, is because nobody cares.
And they told me, I was told no less than by 3 people that I destroyed their life.
Yeah.
By making them turn over the evidence.
Yeah.
They compiled by not doing their job. I destroyed their life.
Right.
I did that.
What about Terrell? What about Terrell?
What about this poor child that suffered?
Yeah. He's dead. Yeah.
He died of starvation.
Yeah. What about him?
People that is?
Yeah. What about me? See, that right there not only is a clock watching scumbag collecting a paycheck, but it's also a sociopath. Because only a sociopath can think like that. Well, you ruined my life. What about the kid, dude?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I'm telling you, I could have beat every one of them and not had a guilty conscience about it, knowing what they did to the kid.
Me neither. Yeah.
And after I thought about it, I just said, man, I told Chrissy, my wife, I just said, I can't do this. I said, I'm coming off of that list. I can't do this.
Right.
It's too much.
Yeah.
So I gave it up.
Yeah. So
I gave up being a court appointed.
Court appointed. Right. I'm being for the defendant.
For the defendant.
Yeah. Well, holy cow, Lynn. I mean, these are, you know, as hard as that was to hear, these are the things that we promised everybody, and these are the stories that I want to hear. But let's listen. We'll hear a couple of funny ones next week. So
I got some very funny ones that
okay, good.
that you'll enjoy.
Okay.
I
Okay, great.
I still laugh when I think about him, Vinny.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that, man. I'm having fun doing this, buddy.
Me too.
Thank you very much for listening. Check out the Terrell Peterson case. You can Google it. Just Terrell. It's Terrell Peterson, Atlanta, Georgia. If you want to learn more about the case, I don't. It's pretty gruesome. And the Terrell Peterson law. That you can probably know all the names of the people that were involved in that. Thank you, Lynn. I'm Vinnie Coppola. I'm your host. If you like stand-up comedy and goofy videos, check me out online. You can go to my website. All my links are there at www.vinnie.com. That's VINNIE.com. Another great one, Lynn. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vinny.